Welcome back, everybody, to Cool Times Podcast, where we talk all things cool about the cold storage construction industry. Joining me is my business and life partner, Miss Jenna Free. I am the other co-host, Vince Free, and today we have a very different, cool episode as we are joined by two lovely beauties here. We have Doug Bowen and Jeff Hall, and they are currently working together, and we're going to get into how and why they're working together here on this podcast. This podcast started, I was driving to, waste management in the bus and with the United Rentals guys, and I get a phone call, and Doug, I apologize, I didn't have your number anymore. It just popped up, and you left me a voicemail. I call you back right away. I'm like, Doug, good to hear from you. We start shooting the shit, and I'm like, holy cow, like you literally went from you know X to Z in like a short amount of time, and I thought he was retired, and you know, just he's back from the dead.
I don't think you die when you retire. I don't think that's right.
Anyways,
But
Doug, yeah. Doug, you and I have known each other a super long time. You've been, for your background, I don't have enough time in oxygen to go over your resume. I mean, you're a genius in the construction industry. You specialize in the door industry. You've had a long career in the door industry, industrial and cold storage.
Mhm.
And, so we're going to get into a little bit of that first and talk about your experiences in that. Doug, why don't we start with you first and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in the cold storage industry?
Mhm.
Great. Well, I want to thank you and Jenna for this opportunity. It's fabulous, and it's something I follow. I sit anxiously waiting every week for a cool broadcast, cool times broadcast. I got into the door industry because my dad said we don't have line mechanics in the family. Our lineage is better than that. So go see a headhunter. He's got a job for you where you can wear a shirt and slacks and not have dirty hands. So
There you go.
I did. I started work with Atlas Door Corporation in 1984, a rolling door manufacturer. Didn't know much about it, but quickly found within weeks I loved it. It was construction. I'd always done stuff with my hands. And it was a very good living for me and my family for over 38 years.
Yeah.
The last 15 or so years in the industry, I specialized more in specialty application type door products. That was actually started by our mutual friend, Jeff Frederick from ASI, when he brought me in to the
Sure.
life science industry almost 18 years ago. He introduced you and I together. I will not be embarrassed to say this. Vince, you were a huge mentor for me. We worked very well together when I worked for a dealer. You taught me the cold storage business, and we did a lot of great installs together, except for that day in August when you and I were out at the LA County morgue and it was 98 degrees. That was hideous, but we made it.
That wasn't the worst part. Are you kidding me? That was not the worst part. I've never seen a dead body before. Okay. So
Oh,
that
you hadn't.
I hadn't. So like many first in the cold storage industry, my first experience was a chicken kill plant where, you better put these rubber boots on. I'm like, okay, and walking in like 3 inches of blood. And I'm like, it was so disgusting. But the morgue thing, that got me. Like that was probably the hardest like site visit ever because the lady was so kind walking us to like the door,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the cold storage door that we were trying to fix and repair. And the lady's like, if you're uncomfortable with this, just like look at the floor. And as you like look at floor, I'm sorry, you can still see the tags on the toes. Okay.
Right.
I'm like, oh my goodness. Like this is
That's
I,
a new experience.
yeah. I don't
There,
tell a lot
there
of
was
people about
parts
that because
no
I still have
farther than
nightmares.
10 feet away from us, and not all of them were bagged. So
No.
we'll leave it at that. But it was quite an experience for both Vince and I. We were going to go have lunch afterwards, and
I wasn't hungry anymore.
we
It
both
takes a lot for
decided
you to say
food
that.
wasn't on the table. So,
God,
You
no.
couldn't find any sushi?
oh,
fine.
well,
Oh, God.
like
God.
Storg is
What?
in Los Angeles is not a favorable neighborhood, to be
No.
perfectly correct. So that was the start of it. But that started my relationship. I landed a job as a door contractor, controlled environments construction, out at Port Hueneme for Cool Carriers. And that was my first real intro into the differences of regular brick and mortar building to
Sure.
all of a sudden they're building a structure and then insulating it and bringing in all these huge coolers and so on and so forth. I ended up meeting John Dietrich at Lineage and helped him when they took over the old Stater Brothers
Yeah, I remember that.
distribution center. I was doing the new doors at the new Stater Brothers.
Yep.
That was a connection through the general contractor, and
Sure.
worked with John for years on and off. If his normal door guys that he had couldn't do something, then he'd call me. Vince and I started our friendship and relationship in the industry when he was with ASI.
Sure.
That worked
Yeah.
very well. I learned a lot. We would sometimes just go to In-N-Out after calling on customers and eat for an hour and a half, and I'd pick his brain about the industry. And we had a great relationship that was beneficial to both of us. Vince left and went on to greener pastures. There was an intermediate sales rep that had Vince's territory that didn't last long. And Vince called me and said, "Hey, why don't you, give Chuck Zimmerman a call? They're looking. This might be something for you." Then my buddy Jeff Frederick at ASI said, "Hey, Doug, I think you need to call Chuck Zimmerman." And I did. I was working with Chuck on some stuff down in San Diego. And
Yeah.
next thing you know, I'm flying to Milwaukee to sign an offer sheet and get Vince's old laptop. And
I hope you deleted
hope
my
they cleared it.
I hope you cleared my browser history.
they did. They washed it. But no, and that's how it started. And I was 7 days into doing it and training, and my world was spinning. And Vince was with an East Coast low temp contractor at the time, and I called Vince and said, "Help." And he goes, "Well, I'm traveling for the next week, but I'll call you in a week later and I'll give you some pointers and ideas. And here's 4 guys you need to go see right away, right off the bat." One was Dave Arnett, our good friend Dave Arnett.
Yeah.
The other was Pete Lipshot.
Mhm.
And within 5 weeks of meeting Pete Lipshot, I had an order for a project in Salem that
Mhm.
they threw the original door guy off. And then there would be times I would, just be, and Vince told me and Jeff told me, "Look, you're 3 or 4 years in before you build your territory."
Oh,
And
easy.
I'm a quick results guy, and my pay structure was based on that.
Yeah.
And I called Vince sometimes late in the afternoon and just be in a panic. And
You
then
gotta
when
be
he
patient. I mean, any new
came
job
out
that involves
here,
patient sales, you gotta be patient. It always takes 3 years to build that up, and they're
right, your territory.
totally.
And my predecessor after Vince wasn't a real high achieving type guy. He wasn't the go-getter that Vince and I tend to be. And
I agree with that.
Vince came to work out here with Dean and Eric and was gracious enough to schedule a lunch for myself and Chuck Zimmerman, our boss. And we spent 3.5 hours talking, and I probably wrote 2 8.5 by 11 sheets of notes from Vince and from Eric and from Dean. And
Mhm.
it made a big difference. And then my first big order out of the blue, I'm up in Spokane, Washington, freezing my tuckus off. And Vince calls me and says, "Hey, I got your bid. If you got 5%, I'll send you the PO." And that was my first substantial order.
Yeah,
It
that
was
was a
for
big one. I
Fredericton,
remember that one.
Indiana. And it just solidified, the fact that Vince was wanting to see somebody succeed in a position that he had great success in. And then from that point on, I learned the intricacies of dealing with end users and door dealers and how
Totally.
to promote the product the right way, which was get directly to the end user. And I would get texts from Vince every now and then, "Hey, you need to go see this guy," or
Yeah,
"Hey, you need to go see that guy." And that meant the world to me.
totally.
And you got me hooked up with Dan Costello, and
Oh, the
Dan
gods.
kind of
The
helped me
gods,
learn to
father.
travel. We did a golf tournament for US Cold Storage that went over with great success, and
Mhm.
Vince was a big part of that, and Dan was,
Mhm.
and Dave Arnett, and Dave Mata, and all the rest of the crew there.
We need
And
to
from
get
that
that going
point,
again.
yeah, right.
I'm serious. We need to fire it
Everyone
up.
had such a good
We talked to
time.
Dave Arnett about it on the show.
We did on our
When do we have?
episode with Dave.
We haven't.
I did catch that.
Yeah. Yeah, and we talked about that same golf outing we started in. Yeah.
We should do something about that. Maybe Solidus can be a part of that, because there's a lot of subcontractors that they use out of the Central Valley that
Oh,
could use
totally.
our help.
Oh, absolutely. And Doug, I don't like, I do that for people, but I don't do what I did for a lot of people. I did it for you, Doug, because you were from the start just so freaking badass in regards to your approach. You were level headed, you're honest, and a drive and energy that I loved, and it was contagious. And I'm like, man, this guy's the real deal, and I want him to be successful, and I want him. This is not an easy job to just jump into. Selling doors was very it was very cutthroat. I know it sounds stupid, but
No,
there's so much competition, with
Yeah.
what you're doing with, you had Rytech out there and Right Height out there dominating the market on the West Coast, and then you had to deal with, the people kind of just, pecking at you like the Albanese and things like that. Right. So,
Oh, even Jamison
oh,
was a
totally.
difficult foe.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they had HCR dominated, they'd still dominate the United States. So when we were
Mhm.
trying to peddle our air door, like we would come in and sell them our air door. And they're like, you have one of those HCR doors? Like that's our competitor. Like they would call an air door an HCR door. They marketed it so well, like a
Right.
tissue paper. Like a tissue paper, people call Kleenex, right? So hey,
Mhm.
can I get a Kleenex, even if it's not the name brand Kleenex.
Mhm.
So talk about a marketing deal they had on the entire world, right?
Well, and Vince, to that note, Rytech was the same way for high-speed fabric doors and
Hmm.
cooler freezer doors. I can't tell you the times I get developers or GCs to call me when I was at ASI. Hey, do you have the Rytech product?
Hmm.
Have a better product.
Doug, that's why they're one of our platinum sponsors here at Cool Times, right?
Right.
You know?
Their marketing budget was bigger than ASI's annual revenue on the cold storage side.
You're
Probably.
you're not
You're probably
wrong.
not wrong.
But not to really give you nightmares, but this show today is sponsored by Jamison Door
It
Company.
is.
So
And I love Jamison's product. I sold their sound attenuation doors for 30 years.
wow, man,
So
you
I'm
have
very familiar with their product and love their product.
mountains of stories, I bet.
And
You
one of yours of
do.
my good friends was there, John Hatters, helping them kick off their high-speed fabric product.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, speaking of all of your years of experience and your combined years of experience, I guess, with you, babe, do you have a cool story or a cool moment that you would want to share with our listeners from your experience? It could be from your time with doors or it could be something current that you're working on, but this moment will be sponsored by Jamison Doors.
I love it.
fabulous. So one of the coolest things was, and this goes back to Vince and doing McClellan Park for U.S. Cold Storage. I had just come on board with ASI and was traveling with the national sales manager, Chuck Zimmerman, who's a good friend of all of ours,
Yep.
obviously, and
Yep.
a great mentor too. But we showed up on a rainy day, slogging in. Vince was there with his crews, and I had never seen this panel grip that you had developed and procured to hang the panels because this was a very high elevation building.
Mhm.
And all said and done, I was dealing with Mr. Rosecrans. I can't think of his first name, the
Chuck.
superintendent.
Chuck.
Chuck, thank you.
Yeah. Chuck.
And Scott Gaimon shows up, and Chuck and I were getting ready to leave because Chuck got his $300 leather shoes muddy and was a little irritated with me. I had boots on, by the way. Vince had boots, so did everybody else.
Chuck Zimmerman always wore these stupid loafers on all these sales calls. I'm like, you need to get some more industrial, like just brown boots that are nice, but not like,
Not only that, they were Allen Edmonds. They were $395 a
yeah,
pair.
yeah.
Like,
And hey, and we couldn't get a raise, like couldn't even get a
Right.
raise.
Here we go.
And he's rolling up a new Honda Accord every other 3 months.
right, right. So if you recall, it was raining like hell. We were leaving. We were putting up the big high-speed biparting doors. There was an issue. I got up into the scissor lift with Anthony Brown, and we diagnosed and fixed some stuff, and came back down. And you were talking with Scott Gaimon, and I was heading to the trailer, and you called me over and introduced me to Scott Gaimon, which was a huge deal for me at the time because I had already made 5 calls to Fisher
Mm.
and couldn't get anybody to call me back. And I had John Howell call me back saying, "Hey, I'm leaving Ice Equip going there. Call me then, but until then, wait." So, but that was a huge breaking point for me to have a general contractor that specializes in the niche industry that I was trying to break
Sure.
into
Mm.
say, next time you're in Washington, take the trip up and see me, and I'll introduce you to everybody. And then I'll also send you over to Spokane next time you have a trip. That to me was a very big breaking point to start to get orders. I mean, you know, we weren't getting rich off of our salary. We were making our money to support ourselves off
Yeah.
of what we were making on our bonuses and commissions. And
Sure.
right away, I picked up a couple of nice small jobs so Fisher could see what I was capable of. And then, it ultimately rolled into U.S. Cold Storage in Fresno and did some work at Tulare and Bakersfield and some of the other spots. So that, again, was a big big deal.
Mhm.
And you again did the same thing for me at a SEBA show in Phoenix with the Stellar guys. And I
Yeah.
ended up getting a
I
couple of
remember
very nice orders out of them that
Yeah.
I had no knowledge they were even bidding or on the street. And that was, you know, that just showed the relationship that we had that really helped me get my feet under myself and going in the cold storage business as a direct product marketer and sales rep.
And Doug, that speaks volumes for a lot of the things that, we try to preach to new up and comers, college kids coming out and trying to, jump in and be successful in any career, business, sales, anything at all. I mean, life is about relationships
Right.
and you need to, I don't like to use the word leverage them, but people want to help people, right? And I don't think we're meant to do any of those things that we're doing in life alone. Hence
Right.
why I work every single day with my lovely wife. But when you just ask for help on anything, no matter what you're doing, and it's human nature, and Jeff, I'm sure you'll appreciate this. When people ask for help, people want to help people, right? I mean, that's just what they want to
Totally.
do. And you don't get anywhere in our careers alone, right? It's all about networking and getting out there, just being genuine, right?
Mhm. Might not happen the first time, right? Might not be the first person that you ask for help that's willing to help you, but there will be someone along the way
Totally. Yeah.
that you can build a relationship with.
Jeff, you've been quiet over there, but I want to get to know, well, we all want to get to
We
know
do.
a little bit more about you and you are a US Navy vet
Mhm.
and we appreciate your service.
Absolutely.
And I'm
Thank
sure being in the Navy's taught you a lot of life lessons, right?
absolutely. Yeah, I got to spend a little time in the Persian Gulf. Actually, before the Persian Gulf War, during the time that Iran and Iraq were lobbing scuds back and forth, and the US government decided the oil was more important than their little war. So we went over there and helped the oil tankers get out of the Persian Gulf through the Gulf of Oman, out into the Indian Ocean, then turned around and we got some more super tankers. So it was
Jeez.
a lot of fun.
I bet. And you got an interesting career too. And I want to learn how you two guys connected because Doug, after you had this phenomenal career in the door industry, you made all these relationships and it's one thing that someone gives you a name and a contact, but it's another thing to follow up and make something happen. And you did that.
Yeah.
You had a great career. You ended up, quasi retiring. And, Jeff, your career, we talked before the show. I mean, you have a laundry list of my ideal career path of you got into heavy equipment operating, right? And then you got into development, you worked for a construction company, you bought a company that did banking and financing, and it's all about do working your way, right? You call it
Natural
work. Yeah,
steps.
natural steps, working your way to the top, not giving up. It's okay to want more, but it's okay to take one step at a time. Does that sound right, Jeff? I mean, it's
Yeah,
kind of
no,
what
it
you did.
is. One of the things I think we do as a society, I tell the story of Friday Night Lights, right? So all the parents are sitting in the stands, they're watching their kids play football, and every one of them say, "My son's going to go to Stanford, and my son's going to go play at USC, my son's going to go play at Texas." And there's not a lot of people in the stands saying, "My son's going to the IBEW. He's going to be an electrician. I'm really proud of him." or
Right.
go be
That's
a
so
welder.
true. You never hear that.
No.
And and that's on us as parents. We have to be just as excited about the career paths of the young people that are going into the trades. And we need to support that just as much as we support the kids that want to go get a 4-year education. Certainly nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But my career path was a little different. And I tell my kids, look, you never know what you're going to learn in each one of those jobs. So, got out of the Navy and got a NASD SEC license, worked in the debt market for a little while, but didn't really like that. But I learned a lot about financials, right? And then went to work for a developer and learned a lot about, building things, and was able to use, the time that I was a heavy equipment operator. So I knew line and grade, knew how to survey, could, read grade stakes, do all of that, but then learned to, build vertically. And then was able to take that and got hired at Turner and worked at Turner for almost 10 years and became VP of operations. So every one of those steps taught me something that I needed for the next step. I just didn't know it yet.
Yeah,
And
of course.
encourage the young people to, whatever job you have, just learn from it. And there's something that you're going to learn that you can use in the next step.
Sure. How do you know Doug? How'd you guys connect?
So oddly enough, our boys played Little League together at the same place, Golden Hills Little League in Fullerton. And Doug and I got to be good friends. We kept looking across the field and saying, I know you from somewhere, and I know you from somewhere. Obviously, we're in the same industry. And then realized that I was a Turner and he was in the door business, and they had already installed probably, hundreds of doors for us over the years. And so we made
Doug. That a boy.
yeah, got to be friends, and our sons stayed friends even to today, and so it's kind of been a lifelong friendship.
That's really cool.
That's
And,
really
and as I was developing more, going into a specialized market niche to separate myself 10, 11 years ago, to get out of the commodity bidding and get into the higher profit things, probably once or twice a year, Jeff or I would pick up the phone. He was traveling a lot. I was traveling locally here, and we go have lunch and talk. And Jeff called me right after I left ASI and went to work for a mom and pop door company that gave me the facility to start a specialty door division. And I called Jeff. I said, "You want to have lunch?" And he says, "Yeah, let's do that." We looked at our schedules. We went and had a nice lunch. And I asked him point blank, I said, "Jeff, I know with your Turner connections, you have a lot of life science lead-ins. That's really where I'd like to go, whether I do direct to the end user or through Turner or McCarthy or some of your other high net value GCs. Can you help me get in the door?" And he goes, "Well, of course I can, without question." He goes, "I really thought you were coming to me to ask for money to start your own door business." We both sat there for a minute. That hadn't broached my mind, but obviously it had his. So we talked about that and decided, money does weird things to friends, right? And I value his friendship, and I value the friendship that our daughters and our sons have together. And I just didn't want money to become a part of it. So he orchestrated probably 3 or 4 different meet and greets for me that weren't necessarily Turner, but people that he knew, and got me going, which helped, do a lot of that. And then as I was getting done with the door business, and while I loved working for Minor and it was a great organization, it wasn't really set up for contracting work like what I was doing. And so I was constantly fighting management that didn't understand the principles of general contracting. And I thought, you know what, I'm 38 years into this. I've been in several communications with Jeff. He's always been a mentor for me in a lot of aspects and areas of life, not just our professional life.
Mhm.
And so he called me at Christmas time a year ago and said, "Hey, I had an epiphany. Let's go have breakfast. I'd like to get your feedback on it." Hey, I'm always in for a free breakfast. So we went there and he started telling me about it, asking me questions relative to when I had worked for family businesses for 20 of my 38 years. And financial pratfalls and all of those issues. And the light bulb went off for me. It already had for him, and he was already doing the background work. And so we stayed in communication. We'd have breakfast every 3-4 weeks and go over it. And I finally told Jeff, I said, look, I'm tired. I think I'm going to pull the plug and retire from the door business. And he says, give me a week. And a week later, he calls me up. He was out of town, and he says, I'll be out of town next week, but pack up all your stuff and go to my office and set up shop, and we'll figure out how to keep you going, in that regard. But I want you to start on the Whisper campaign. Well, you know me, Vince. Hard to believe, but I do love to talk. So the Whisper campaign for me
Of course, he never met a whisper that he likes. So
So I spent the next 60 days developing a Whisper campaign and documents of clients and subcontractors, and work got fun again for me. And then we started putting more and more final touches and getting everything set in place. Jeff got the operating agreement going, and then it really became not just an epiphany or a dream for Jeff and his partner, but me being lucky to be included in it.
Sure.
I could see that there was definitely grass on the other side of the hill, and I wanted a part of it. So
Of course.
we negotiated a deal, and but just haven't, honestly, everybody says this, but it's true. We've had a blast since day one.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I'll continue the bus story. We were talking, and now all of a sudden you kind of, after you're like, hey, I got out of retirement and I'm doing this thing now, Vince, and I really want to talk to you about it. And
Right,
I'm like, okay, here we go. He's gonna ask me for money.
right, right. That's everybody's first thought, though, right?
Always.
So I'm like, yeah, what do you got into? So you joined Jeff in this venture you just explained, and the company is Solidus, and you had explained it to me on what they did and why you started it and all these things. I'm like, this is really badass. We need to get this to everybody. And there are a lot of subcontractors that could use this service that you guys have created. There's other services out there kind of like this, but after I dug into the weeds on what this is and what you sent me, I read it. Jeff, Doug, this is a home run. This is a phenomenal company idea. And I'm like, Doug, let's get this on the podcast because I know we're cold storage construction focused, but man, there's a lot of subcontractors in our industry that may or may not listen to this, but if they're listening, maybe we can help them. And we love to help people.
The platform. I'm sorry, Jenna, please.
Go ahead,
I was
Jen.
just going to comment that I think what you guys have done is really identify a need,
Absolutely.
and a need that all subcontractors come in, face against at times. And what you've created is a solution for that.
Absolutely.
And I think more people need to know about it.
So tell us, what is Solidus? What is it for all the millions of listeners out there? No, what is Solidus?
So over the last 30 years, I've unfortunately had to watch great generational businesses. Grandpa was a plumber, dad was a plumber, son's a plumber, maybe he went to a couple of years of community college, really wants to grow the family business, starts growing the family business, and now all of a sudden they need cash to keep growing the family business, right? Because you got more receivables, more payables, more payroll, more trucks, more everything.
Right.
And so, they're growing, and so they're not maybe in the perfect financial shape that they can go to a bank and get a big line of credit, right? And if they do, there's personal guarantees, and they're going to attach your house and all the craziness that goes along with a big bank,
Sure.
right? And they have, banks have a place in our industry as well. But we looked at that, and what would happen is inevitably at some point they'd say, well, we'll just go factor just a couple of our invoices, right? We'll take a couple of big invoices, we'll factor them, they'll charge us 3 or 4% or whatever they charge, and then Well, what happens is you get into a job and it starts to pay a little bit slower and they don't pay in 90 days. And all of a sudden the factoring company goes, we don't care. 90 days, you got to pay us now, right?
Mhm.
We don't care if you're paid. And so now what do? Now they go, well, shoot, now we got to go to a hard money lender. So now a hard money lender is going to loan them money at 20 or 25%, and they're going to
Sure.
attach the equity of the business. And it's this,
The
downward
vicious cycle,
spiral
yeah.
that they just can't get out of.
Vicious
And
cycle.
and at
It is.
58 years old, I knew I had, maybe one more good idea in me and said, I want to do something that really could change the industry, that could be meaningful, that could help a lot of these, generational businesses. And so, we're allowing them to borrow based on their good balance sheet, right? If you're a $50 million a year company, you're going to have $5 million of retention on your balance sheet. We'll let them borrow 80% of that. And we try to do it at a cost of less than 1% of a job.
Wow.
Last week, we closed a $3.2 million loan to a great mechanical company, and we did it for 0.46.
Wow.
Less than half of 1% of the cost of the job went to them being able to get $3.2 million of the retention, which paid down their lines of credit, which
Wow.
put cash back in their company, and they've got a pipeline of $120 million for next year. And this is capital that they can really use to go out and facilitate that work. And so,
Wow.
as an industry, we got to find ways to rally around our subcontractors and our tradesmen so that they can have good businesses and not get taken advantage of by some of the people that hang around the fringes of our business and look for opportunities.
Yeah.
The
That's
predatory lenders. That's
Mm.
what we want to disrupt, is the
Mhm.
whole predatory lending platform that's out there. We disrupt it. We are engaging with subcontractors daily that, like Jeff said, are great craftsmen or tradesmen, but
Mhm.
aren't necessarily anything above their accounting, as using a simple Peachtree program, and they're not realizing the profits that they should realize by controlling job costs, controlling your collections in a
Mhm.
timely manner, and all of those things. So, one of the things that we're doing in our platform, because of mine and Jeff and our partner Rob's, we've got over 100 years of construction industry in the four of us that are the basis for this company. So we do project auditing monthly once we sign up with you. So
Okay.
if you're not good at doing a schedule of values timely so that you can submit a progress payment, and
Mhm.
you're also not good at tracking the status of that progress payment, we have intelligence and abilities to assist with that. So we're not just offering them some cash that's ready needed. We're offering them a platform to organically grow their business the way it should.
Yeah,
And
let me expand a little bit on what Doug's saying, because I
please,
think this is really important. Our goal, once we step in, is really to become a partner with the subcontractor, because we are, right?
Of
They
course.
still own 20% of their retention. We have 80% of the retention, which is the cash that we've already given them. So we're partners now, right? And it's advantageous for both of us if the project goes well and stays healthy. So we have 30 years of experience, and we know if you get a bunch of RFIs that either the drawings weren't well written, or you have a general contractor that's not sophisticated enough to handle the job that he's on, there's all kind of litany. So that we start looking at all of the different indicators, and the sooner we can determine, hey, wait a minute, this project's starting to go south a little bit, then we can step in and help them before it becomes a big problem and a big systemic issue, which helps the developer, which helps the construction loan, which helps the GC, and every sub that's on the job. So us coming in and partnering and say, hey, wait a minute, your pay cycle went from 27 days to 37 days to 47 days. What's happening?
Yeah.
Is it the construction managers just not processing it fast enough? Is it the architect that's not signing the G702, 703? What's going on? And let's help the project get healthy again so that everybody can make money and be successful. And so we use some of those things to partner with them. And then we're hoping that they adopt some of those processes that we put in place, not just for the projects that we partner with them, but for all their projects. Because then they're going to grow and they're going to get bigger. And then, somebody in that company, we all believe in capitalism, will go, gosh, I'd like to own my own plumbing company. Or I'd like to own my own HVAC. And
Yeah.
away they go, right? And then they'll need the same, kind of helping hand along the way.
Yeah.
So
I could see this being super beneficial to, companies that are, just started to 3 years old. I mean, up to 5 years old, like
Yeah.
that, like even for us, right? Like the first couple years, it's like, all right, when are they going to pay us? Right. When are they going to pay us?
Right.
And then it's the retainage, right? I mean, it's waiting. And then there's some jobs that are, 6 to 9 months you wait for retainage. And
right.
a
And
new
I mean,
company, a new
think
plumbing
about
company can't absorb that.
think about the early subs, right? The dirt mover,
Yeah.
the
Sure.
concrete guy that's pouring the footings. I mean, they're waiting sometimes 20 months, 22
Oh, yeah,
months
2 years.
to
Dude,
get their money.
ridiculous.
So
Yeah.
yeah, we're really hoping to really change the industry. I mean, if we all look at this and say, when's the last time you went to a grocery store and you said, you know what, that's a good looking apple. I'm going to pay you 90 cents and I'm going to eat the apple. And if I liked it, I'll come back and give you a dime. But if I didn't like it, I'm going to come back and negotiate whether you get a nickel, a dime, or 7 cents. That doesn't happen in any other industry but the crazy industry that we're all in, right?
Yeah, it's
We
wild.
can, we as an industry, we can do way better than that, and we should do better than that.
You're right.
And if we all rally around and say, "Hey, look, we're just not going to put up with this craziness anymore,"
You know,
then collectively we can make a difference.
everyone's paid when paid, and then when that happens, I mean, it's these poor suppliers at the very bottom just, like, waiting weeks and months to get paid, and I don't think it's right,
Right.
because it just
So
you know,
I'm glad you brought that up because that's another part of our platform.
that's
So
why I
for
said that, man. I know this, man.
Perfect lead in.
I
So,
got this.
another part of our platform is, these big supply houses, the Paces and the Fergusons and all that, they really don't want to be in the finance business anyway, right? They
Sure.
want to sell faucets and they want to sell, cooling towers and air handlers and that they're really good at doing that and getting you the right equipment for the right job. They're
Mhm.
not in the finance business. They never wanted to be in they're forced to be in the finance business
Sure they are.
because developers or construction loans take, like you said, they're the last one to get paid down the line, right? So we've stepped in and started to work with some of these guys and said, look, would you give us a little discount if we paid you at the moment the truck left the yard? Tell us what's on the truck, make sure it's what the sub ordered. We will pay you the moment that the truck leaves.
Mhm.
Give us a little bit of a discount. It's no cost to the sub, right? Because now it's being financed by the supplier because he doesn't want to be in the finance business anyways. He's got the cost of his own line of credit
Mhm.
and his inventory control and all of those kinds of things that he has to deal with. He just says, take that burden off of me. I'll give you a little bit of a discount. And that little bit of a discount, right? If we collect that money in 45 or 60 days, if you times that little discount times 12, it's a fair return, right? So we can make a fair profit. It costs the sub nothing, and it takes a burden off the suppliers, off of their balance sheet because now they don't have to hold those receivables.
Absolutely. That's an incredible idea.
It is.
Now
And the subcontractors
yeah.
benefit by knowing exactly when that material's leaving. A
Mhm.
lot of these supply houses will move those orders closer to the front of the line because it's paid for. And on your long lead items, we're working with an electrical contracting firm right now on procurement loans because switch gears are 2 and 3 times what they were, and they're 20 and 24 month lead times.
Yes.
You're building an industrial project out in Paris or Mira Loma, and it's an 18-month duration from turning soil to topping out. You're upside down with that. So we're working with them. We're going to Siemens and some of these other suppliers and saying, hey, like Jeff had illustrated, we'll pay you the minute you show proof that that truck's leaving, you're done. So not only do we get that additional discount, which is beneficial, but now they have control of their supplies. They know where it's going to be. They can participate on the job site CPM meetings with an answer other than, I really don't know. Because we all know what a superintendent and a project manager says on those meetings in the trailer where it's tense and you're on a tough schedule and you just had a month of rain, so you're behind, right? And you come back with a, I really don't know. That's not an answer. That's not viable. They can't enter that into their Timberland or their schedule. So we're assisting with the procurement part on the delivery also.
The other thing, interesting thing that we're starting to see in the marketplace, love to get your guys' feedback as well. A lot of these big supply houses now, as credit is getting tighter, because people are worried, is there going to be a recession? Is there not? Whatever. They're getting tighter and tighter. Now they're starting to say, hey, for big switchgear, 20% deposit up front. Well, you can't bill for that, right? How do you go collect that money, right? Oh, it's stored materials. You guys know all the trouble it takes to get money for stored materials. So we start to look at that and just say, hey, wait a minute. We again can step in and help out the subcontractor because of our experience. We know how to get stored materials paid for. We know how to do the UCC filing and the bonded warehouses and all those kinds of things. We can go and step in and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. Mr. General Contractor, you want your equipment on time. We're going to pay for it COD. You're going to pay us 30 days from the time that we start to do that. And this is how the structure is going to run. Again, now that cash flow that the sub would have to take off of their balance sheet, now they don't have to, right? That money comes from us. When they get paid, we get paid. And so it's just another way to help that subcontractor keep cash on his side and be able to go prosecute his work, on a day-to-day basis.
And a timely basis.
No kidding. That's amazing. So quick question about that, because you have different, I guess, platforms under Solidus where do you have to do the retainage, upfront retainage help from your company in order to get the, buying and procuring materials at a discounted rate so they get paid right away? You have to do one to get both, or you have to do both, or or can you pick what you want?
Yeah, it's a la carte. Do it anyway.
You guys are like select off the menu a la carte.
Hey, we make Golden Corral look good.
I love it. Well, you guys, this is a brilliant idea, and it's a needed idea, right?
It really is, Vince. I'm glad you said that, because all through the Whisper campaign, and I was dealing with a lot of big GCs to get their feedback and find out who their most up and coming subs were that might be able to benefit from this. And I can't tell you, we probably had 3 or 4 CFOs tell us, I've been in this business X number of years, filling in 20, 30, 40 years, never heard about anything like this. This isn't out there. And of course, for us, we eat that up because there isn't anything like that. We're not a factoring institution.
Right.
We're letting you get your work in place capital for a very nominal percentage of the cost of the singular job we're funding.
Of course.
It's not 3, 4, or 5% like on a factoring. And you're sitting praying on the 25th that your hard draft is going in, and the GC is going to accept it, the auditor is going to accept it, the developer is going to pay it, and you're going to see that money in 45 days.
Do you guys want to do all of our monthly billings? That'd be great.
Done.
For us.
we can fly into Texas and help you out too, Vince. We'd love to do that.
Man, I love it. So what are the costs for these platforms? Do they vary on money size or job size? Or
I'm going to defer that to Jeff.
Jeff, what do you got?
So look, when we started the business, we thought that our sweet spot would be the $50 million subcontractor, right? They're big enough that they're having growing pains and they're needing capital, but they're not so big that they could have these big lines of credit and have solved all of their cash flow issues, right? But I think what we're finding is it's not necessarily the size of the company, It's about who are the key players in each one of the industry? Who are the top 2 or 3 door companies, right? There's not a lot of $50 million door companies, but there might be a lot of really good 10 or $15 million door companies that in Southern California, they're the biggest in this area, right?
Sure.
Geographic area. So we've started to look at it a little bit differently that way. We're also very surprised that some of the bigger subcontractors in the marketplace are coming to us saying, well, wait a minute, if it's procurement and it's no cost to me anyway, what do I care? So now, I mean, we're in talks with a company that's $400 million and they're saying, look, if you'll do my procurement for me, what the heck? It just helps me continue to get the best prices. I'm going to get the best delivery service and I don't have to worry about it. You're going to prelim the job just like they would have anyway. It's no difference to me. Why do I care if I write the check to you or write the check to them if I can continue to get better and better service? So it's the spectrum has actually gotten much bigger than we thought it was going to be. The other nice thing is, we don't have a lot of financial requirements, right? You can't have a bunch of tax liens. You can't be in the middle of litigation, right? You can't be in the process of going through a chapter 11. I mean, it's all the big normal boxes kind of pass fail.
Sure.
But if you have a normal set of books and you've made a profit, you filed your taxes, look, we're in. Because we're really looking at what's the healthiness of the job that we're giving the money to, because that's more than 50% of the determination of whether we loan to a subcontractor is the healthiness of the project, not just the healthiness of them. So that helps, again, that middle America subcontractor who's working really hard, trying to do the right thing, but isn't $100 million company and doesn't have a huge balance sheet. That's okay. It's okay with us because we're looking at the job as the primary source of repayment.
Amazing. Doug
Yeah.
is very whisper trail on this whole thing for
On
much of our
January 2nd,
conversation.
we
And I'm
should
like,
make
you guys
that
realize
one.
this podcast is going to be out soon, right?
Absolutely. No, we know that. Look, we're really excited about it. We spent a lot of time finding the right partners for us. We wanted to make sure that we had access to capital that, if it got big fast, that we would have those resources, that we wouldn't,
Sure.
go out there and tell everybody yes, and then go, oh, wait a minute. We got to go raise some more capital before we can do it.
Yeah.
So we're in a great position now. We've got a great joint venture partner that we've teamed up with that has been iconic in our industry. And he says, go make as many loans as you can make and just do
Wow.
good
Amazing.
underwriting, partner up with them, make sure the projects do well and let's go change the industry.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So obviously, because this idea is going to resonate with so many people and this need is felt in so many areas in this industry, how do people find you guys? How do they find out more about your company? What socials are you on? Where can they follow you? What's your website? How do people get in contact with you guys?
Sure. So easiest way is you can go to our website, which is solidusco.com. So solidusco.com.
Okay.
So that's the easiest way to get a hold of us. We're very active, both Doug, I, and our other business development professional down in San Diego, Brian LaGrange. We're very active on LinkedIn. So you'll see, weekly and sometimes daily posts from us on there. You can reach out through there. And then all of our contact information is on our website.
Awesome.
We have a very, very aggressive young marketing manager that really has a grasp on LinkedIn and social media platforms. We're working through selecting appropriate trade shows now to attend.
Yeah.
We attended the ConX show and had a very good
World of Concrete.
World of Concrete.
World of
excuse me,
Concrete.
ConX,
Of
it's not
Yeah,
ConX.
of course.
But we went to World of Concrete
Are
and
you going to ConX?
I am not. I'm not.
You should. I've got a great event for you guys to come hang
we'd
out.
love to have you.
Well, first off, there's rules here. Where is it?
Las Vegas.
In
I'll
Las
see you there.
Hey, we'll come.
We'll be there.
That's the only rule. It has to be in Las Vegas.
No, I mean, if you're gonna say like, hey, it's in Sorry, Nebraska. Or
Louisiana.
anyways,
It adds for him if it's in a desirable location.
We're gonna do a big networking event out there, and if you guys were gonna be out there, we'd
Awesome.
love to host you and have you out there and meet some of the people that we've been able to help.
I'm open to it. Let's talk offline on that. But if
Okay.
you're let's barter here. Are you guys gonna come to SEBA then in Palm Springs?
Well, we
I
talked
love
about
Palm
SEBA.
Springs.
So SEBA
do
is
it.
in November. I think November 11th through the 14th, Palm
Yes.
Springs. So
Yeah.
we will
We'll
be
be
there. So
Okay.
you guys definitely should get in early, see if you guys can get a little tabletop set up. And there's a lot of guys out there, a lot of companies out there that are gonna be all over this idea and probably listen to this and are gonna have questions. And I think it's a
Okay.
great network
Well, we
opportunity.
have an events coordinator that handles all that for us, so we'll let her know.
Absolutely.
And
We
we'll get
know.
that on the docket.
Right.
Get there.
I have that info in my
Great.
I love it. All right, guys, we're down to our last couple minutes. I want to have a fun little session with you right now. 2 minutes. The cool wraparound question sponsored by Jamison Door. I'm going to ask you guys a this or that question. Both of you have to answer, one at a time. Doug, I'm going to start with you. And then after you answer, Jeff has to answer the same question.
Okay.
This or that question. You ready?
Yes.
All right. French fries or onion rings?
Oh, onion rings.
French fries.
Group hangout or a one-on-one hangout?
I like group hangouts.
I'm a groupie.
All right. Share food or don't share food?
No share food for me.
Never.
There
Don't touch my shit.
Yeah.
you go.
Although
Give
Jeff
a-
and I do share French fries in the airport before we board a plane.
Doug, I wouldn't share my In-N-Out fries with you. Those are real good.
You do like those?
You gotta eat a lot of double doubles in an hour and a half. that you
Yeah, no
said
kidding.
it's
No
out there.
kidding. Give a ride or hitch a ride?
Oh, give a ride.
Oh, I'm hitching.
Shopping online or shopping in store?
Oh, online all the way for me.
I don't shop. Mrs. Hall handles all of it.
Roller coasters or water slides?
Oh, I'm a water slide guy. Come on, with this physique and a
I
speed
love
of
it.
one,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
gonna
go roller
track you.
coaster only because I don't want to see that.
I didn't say you had to go, butts to nuts.
Together.
Oh, that's too funny. Brand name or generic?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna say I lean more towards generic because I'm a cheapskate.
I'm a quality over quantity. I'd rather have less and have a good
Yeah.
There you go. Justin Timberlake or Justin Bieber?
one.
Oh, Justin Timberlake all the way because he's a great golfer.
I'll go along with that. I'd like to put a little
Jeff's
triangle.
gonna Google Justin
That's
Timberlake.
the answer he was looking
Who's
for.
Justin
Stop.
All right, you
Love it.
guys. Thank you guys so much for your time. We appreciate both of you for sharing your stories
We're
and
excited about this. We're excited about your
Yeah.
idea.
Thank
What
you.
this can do for
totally.
for our industry.
Yeah, I mean, this podcast was amazing. It was a little bit different. Maybe our first one where we had 2 people on
Yeah,
the show, which
it
is
is.
awesome.
Mhm.
A lot of firsts this year.
Totally.
I love it. Well, thank you guys so much. And all our listeners out there, continue to support us. You guys can continue to listen to us on Apple Podcasts. You can watch the videos of us being goofy and me drinking my coffee the whole time on YouTube
Mhm.
Under Cool Times Podcast. Hit the red button to subscribe. You guys will see our little, 1-minute intro on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. And yeah, keep spreading the word. And Doug, Jeff, thank you guys
Thank
so
you,
much.
guys.
And
So much, guys.
Thank you for the invitation, you two. I appreciate it greatly. It's great to see you both again.
You.
Next time you're out in this neck of the woods, let's go to Eddie V's and have a dinner.
sounds good to me.
Better yet, see you in Vegas for a cold one.
Yeah.
See you in
Yeah, you
Vegas.
betcha, guys. See you in Vegas. All right.
Thank you all. Bye, Jenna. Bye, Vince.